The electronic score is unsuitable for fantasy, and that is just the tip of the iceberg in this never-ending nonsense.
Giorgio Moroder worked on this. Come on.
This film has no pace, no structure, and no performances.
I agree.
I mean, I'm trying to rebut it.
It's no wonder the author's name doesn't even appear on the credits.
Was this based off
Is
of a
that
book?
a real book?
It is based off of a book. You troglodytes, come on.
I didn't know that.
That was a 1-star review on IMDb. Hello and welcome everyone to a very special Patreon Picks episode of Spoilers Intended.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you so much for supporting the show long enough to where we could do this.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
We appreciate all of our patrons' support. They made it possible.
Yeah.
That's right. If you are hearing this once it hits the main feed and you're not a Patreon, we had a poll on our Patreon page where
A while
you can
ago.
vote.
Yeah.
Well, it cycles through, right? We put these out. Our patrons vote on what we should review. The
Yep.
patrons get early access to the episode, and then it does eventually make its way to the main feed. But if you want to be able to have a say, a little bit of influence on what we're reviewing, and also early access to those reviews, you
Yep.
can help support us on Patreon and get that
For
access.
just
For just $1 a month. And
Just
so
$1.
for this poll, we had a theme. It was 80s movies that scarred children. And the 4 choices were Labyrinth, The Neverending Story,
Dark Crystal.
Dark Crystal, and what was the 4th
Oh my
one?
gosh, Legend.
Legend. That's right. Tim Curry. Fantastic in that. Anyways,
You mean Tom Cruise?
Both is good.
both are good at that, yeah. And yeah, you voted and you picked The Neverending Story.
Yes.
Which I feel that the Neverending Story is very much a nostalgia level film for a lot of people that grew up around that time.
It certainly is for me.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But first, we should introduce ourselves because we are Spoilers Intended, a podcast about series and films.
Yes.
And I am Stephen, joined as always by Andrew
Andrew's
Hello.
laughing.
and Ryan.
Hi, I'm here again.
Yes, that's right. We had to talk about Patreon first.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just completely ignored the entire script, but it's fine.
It's fine.
I love ruining scripts
Do you?
sometimes.
I feel like somebody on the Neverending Story may agree with you.
Yeah, that's true. Let me tell you. Woo.
Hey.
So, like Ryan said, the theme for this voting was movies that scarred 80s children.
Yeah.
And we are all children from the 80s.
Technically, yes.
And so we thought for our intro topic, we would talk about
Andrew just squeaked in
Yeah, just barely made it in. We
by like an hour.
It was 86. I was
Oh,
alive.
whatever. That's barely in. I had beaten Mario Brothers by the time you were born.
Mario Brothers, by the time you were born.
Oh,
I
good
don't sound like
grief.
Yoda. Do I? Oh, no.
No.
Concerned I am.
Oh gosh. But let's talk about some movie trauma that we not necessarily children's movies, but movies we watched as children.
Yes.
traumatized
That scarred us. Or traumatized
As we
us. Yes.
discovered in the pre-show for this, Ryan had many traumatic moments.
Yeah.
But I don't want to hear his first. I want to hear Andrew's.
Oh, God.
Yeah, same here.
Okay, so this is not exactly 1990. I don't really remember how old I was at this point, but I was old enough, probably about 8. Okay. So I guess 94-ish, somewhere around there. We were on a trip to Colorado to see some of my mom's friends.
All right.
And
I'm already scared.
they had a bunch of, like, I'll say younger kids, generally around my age. You know, a couple older ones, a couple younger ones. I was just kind of in the middle. And my mom was off doing something with her friend, and they decided that they wanted to throw on the movie Trolls 2.
Oh,
You mean Troll 2?
Troll 2.
Trolls 2 by DreamWorks is
Yeah.
not-
Troll 2.
that would also scar you, though. I'd just like to say.
Yeah, it was the 1990 film directed by Claudio Fragasso.
Bless you.
Fragasso.
Yeah.
When young Joshua learns that he will be going on vacation with his family to a small town called Nilbog, he protests adamantly. He is warned by the spirit of deceased grandfather that goblins populate the town. His parents, Michael and Diana, dismiss his apprehensions and soon learn that they're learn to appreciate their son's warnings. Guided by his grandfather's ghost, will Joshua and his family stand a chance in fighting off these evil beings? So that synopsis is exactly kind of what the film is about.
Yeah.
That's how synopsises work.
It has a 5% on Rotten Tomatoes. This is considered one of the worst films of all time.
Yeah, Troll 2 is like...
It's terrible.
However, to an 8-year-old kid, this was a truly traumatizing experience.
Yes.
Because this was definitely like the first like really scary film that I saw. And it scared me so much, particularly I guess there was a moment in the film where like someone's using a chainsaw and like cutting up this person that turned into a plant or something. Yeah. And there's like just a bunch of like green blood.
It's just going everywhere.
Yeah.
I remember
and that scene in particular scared me so much that I basically did not sleep for a week.
Yeah.
Just wholesale. I just couldn't fall asleep. I just laid in bed, just terrified that I was going to be like attacked by a troll.
Or you're going to become a plant and then someone's going to chop you up. Like,
it was terrifying.
Like I wonder, if you just don't sleep well for a prolonged period of time as a child, right? Like you're developing, right? So you're like developmentally stunted now. I feel like that explains a lot.
Wow. But yeah, that was definitely one of the scariest moments in film that I've been at. I had another moment. I think I brought it up on another episode about Dawn of the Dead. I'm not going to talk about that one. Honorable mention was when I went to go see. I think it was 2 years later, 1996, Independence Day in theaters with my dad.
Wait, really? What?
And whenever the alien basically slaps the scientist against the wall,
played
and
by
he starts,
Brent Spiner,
starts talking through him, I was terrified and we had to leave the theater. I was so scared.
Man, that movie was awesome, though.
Yeah, I thought that movie ruled.
Is that glass bulletproof? No, sir.
I love the film. I absolutely love Independence Day now.
Specifically talking through that guy. Okay.
Yeah.
I need to go next, Stephen.
Okay. All right.
This is unironic, and this is a perfect example of the difference in age between Andrew and myself. No, you'll see why.
Oh, okay. All
My
right.
movie is 1986's Troll.
Oh, okay.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. The first movie in the series that scarred Andrew at age 8, I was probably age 4 when I saw this.
Oh, God.
And so it scarred me even more. Again, in the early to mid 80s, like these movies, I feel like a lot of them were technically horror movies, but they feature children, and it was the same thing of like the Goonies had kids in it, and so you see this movie and the cover, it's got kids in it, so you think like, what is it?
Like Poltergeist has like mostly just a child.
Yeah.
Yeah, like for most of the movie. And it's like,
so-
well, it's a kid's movie. No, it's not.
In their defense, they probably saw the cover of this movie, which the cover is actually terrifying, so maybe not. Maybe I don't need to let them off the hook for that. Either way, 1986's Troll scarred me crazily. Like, it was insane. So a plot summary of the original Troll is a wicked troll king in search of a mystical ring that will transform him to a human form invades a San Francisco apartment complex where a powerful witch lives.
Okay.
Hilarity ensues.
That's in the synopsis. Hilarity
No,
ensues.
that's my editorializing. A couple things about Troll before I get into what really scarred me on this. Number one of the actors in this movie is in The Neverending Story.
I was just going to say, like, what a coincidence, because
Noah Hathaway, is in this movie.
I was like, I don't know who.
I was like, is Steve going to finish it?
well, I was just trying to help because I was running across that myself. Yeah.
Yeah. Noah Hathaway is in this movie, who plays Atreyu in this. Also, his name is Harry Potter Jr.
Oh no!
His character's name is Harry Potter Jr. Confirmed. J.K. Rowling
Stole
from Troll. She stole from Troll. Yeah. So in this movie, right? There's a lot of creepy scenes, and like Troll, the first one, and Troll 2, very tenuous like sequel. Like there's not a lot of like plot in either one of these, and they're not like, it's not like you watch one and then the story picks up in the second. It's like loose at best. But in the first one, so he has a ring, and on this ring there's like a needle, and he stabs children with it.
Okay.
And
I
when
don't
he
like where
does,
this is going.
it converts their bodies into these body snatcher like pods that burst open and release like forests and like fairies and stuff, like mythical creatures. And the transformations are anything but quick and painless. And the humans are definitely dead at the end of it. Like it's basically like he hits them with the needle, and then they turn into this like pod and then explode, and then all this stuff comes out, and the humans are definitely dead. And the scene that traumatized me the most is the first one of those transformations. It's absolutely
because they show probably everything in gory detail.
Oh, everything. In like just and this is probably, I haven't watched this movie probably since I was like I watched it one other time when I was like 10 or 11. Didn't scare me then, but I was like, okay, yeah, I see why this messed me up as a kid. But I think it's like 30 minutes in they do this, because up until that point it's like a creepy movie, but it could still be like The Witches or Dark Crystal. It could be a kid's movie, and then it takes a hard turn, and it scarred me for a long time. Like because there was a specific scene with like a staircase like going down, and like my grandmother's house, I wouldn't go downstairs like at all. Like
is that
just straight out.
The kid like loses like the ball like bounces down the steps and the kid falls.
Yep.
No, I don't know if this. Well, it's the same thing. Like like when you're like downstairs, you got to turn the lights out, but the switch is at the bottom of the steps. So like you like hit the switch, you like race the ghost up the stairs, and slam the door.
It's like Home Alone with the furnace.
Yeah, very similar.
Yeah, except these things were real in this movie. So.
That's crazy. The ears was trolled too.
It was I was scarred. I still won't watch that film, and I know that it's a terrible, terrible film.
Oh yeah,
but I just hard pass. Like no way,
can't do it.
I just can't do it.
Ryan, you got an honorable mention in there?
For what?
Just
trauma. Trauma.
Yeah, definitely. Let me think here.
Caught him off guard.
There was a scary movie. I think I've told this story on the podcast before, but I'll retell it. My parents wouldn't let me watch scary movies with them. They had like their own we're gonna watch movies.
And you like hide behind.
I snuck into the living room and hid behind this coffee table to watch what they were watching, and it was this werewolf scary movie. I've never been able to figure out what movie it is. I've Googled my brains out trying to find this place. Found this movie, and in the movie, the twist at the end that got me was the werewolf turns out to be this the main lady, her brother, and like the concept that someone could have been the werewolf all along just hit me on a level that I was not prepared for, and I screamed out loud, and they didn't know I had snuck into the living room. So like the climax happens, the reveal, and then I go I like jumped up, and then they're screaming like ah. And it was wild. So that's my honorable mention, and I've got so many more. There's one. I have a lot that I remember because I did the same thing. This goat lady, she had like goat legs, and she was like walking around this old haunted house, and I never figured out what that movie that was. It may have just been like an episode of Outer Limits or something, but either way.
Probably.
It was wild. Steven, what's yours?
So y'all both went with horror movies. I know
what you're going to pick.
Do you?
I'm pretty sure.
Oh, yeah?
I have an idea.
Okay.
Possibly.
How do you know this?
TM.
We're going to find out. So y'all both went with horror movies. I didn't. I went with a children's movie that is actually a horror movie.
Okay.
The Brave Little Toaster. 1987's.
What?
Which part? The furnace?
Every part?
No, it's not scary at all.
But no, Brave Little Toaster is.
We watched that in first grade, and no kids had any issues.
So
we did. Like they wheeled the little cart out and said, "Here, kids," and we loved it. We clapped.
Here's the thing: the Brave Little Toaster is like a movie about obsolescence, existential dread, and like becoming old and incapable, wrapped up in the guise of it's a kids movie.
Yeah, but you don't know any of those words the first time you see that movie, so it doesn't matter.
But you could feel it. I mean, they have a scene in here where like the car crusher scene, right? Where the cars are being lifted and they're singing about how they used to be, so great, and then now they're weak and everything else. One of the cars deliberately drives itself into the crusher after limiting its own life. The car commits suicide on screen.
Oh, it does.
And that was one of the two scenes that the executive producer of the movie said, hey, we need to cut these. These are both out of line. And they both made it right on in, no problem.
Whoever the director's like, no, this has got to be
we'll get rid of it, rolls his eyes.
Yeah, no, that movie was terrifying. The furnace is like right off the bat, right? The furnace is terrifying.
Yeah.
And then the car crusher scene is terrifying. There's a whole scene where they're like in a swamp being sucked into the mud.
Oh, yeah.
And they're like worried about the fact that they're going to die anyways. And the blanket's just like, it's okay. And it's just like accepting the fact that he's being sucked down. It's like, are you
nihilistic
kidding
blanket.
me? Yeah. Like, oh man. Yeah. Ugh. Like I've probably seen that movie twice in my life, and I'm not positive. I don't think I saw it in theaters. I'm pretty sure I saw it like when it came to Disney.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I saw it on VHS before it came to Disney.
Oh yeah, I had this on tape.
We definitely had it on tape, but whether it was like an official VHS or my parents just recorded it off of, I don't know.
You get that copy.
Yeah. But like I've seen this movie like twice in my life. Like on some level, I'm like, yeah, I kind of want to go back. I don't actually really want to go watch it now because like people are like, oh, it's like the first Pixar movie because it's really like deep and adult, but it's also kind of like, no, this is just depression, people. That's just depression.
It's just a messed up movie.
Yeah, it's just a messed up movie, right? Like, boo.
All right, honorable mention.
Honorable mention is now this was in theater. I think it's 1990s. All Dogs Go to Heaven.
Oh, I was actually going to mention All Dogs Go to Heaven.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Ryan, I don't know if you're familiar with this.
Yeah, I watched it. I'm pretty sure I saw it.
That's a heavy film.
I don't know if I watched it in
cow.
theaters, but I definitely watched it when it came out on tape.
But there is a bit, right? So the premise, of course, is this dog. He's befriends this child, and he's kind of helping her, and then
Is Burt Reynolds the voice of the dog?
I think so.
Yes, he is.
Yeah. And then the dog Charlie dies, and all dogs go to heaven. So he goes to heaven, but he refuses to stay because he wants to help the child. So after tricking his way out of heaven to go back to earth, he has this dream about being sent to hell, which is literally he falls down a pit onto the river Styx on just a freaking boat made out of bones.
Yeah.
Where like,
but he's a dog, so he likes bones, so it's like a mixed reaction.
No, it's not that. No. And then like a big demon like raises up and like breathes fire onto the boat, which spawns all these other little demons that like start tugging and pulling at him, and the boat starts sinking. He's like climbing up the prow of the boat, which is like a freaking spine and skull of a skeleton. It is like legit nightmare fuel. And I remember because we saw this in theater. And I remember just being in the theater, just like, Mom, like, oh.
Yeah, it's that film is definitely one that I watched, I'll say, a lot as a kid, not necessarily by choice.
Yeah, I feel like that. Like both of those films were kind of the films where my parents were just like,
"Oh, we'll put that on."
Oh, he likes it. It's a kids movie. We'll put that in for him.
Yeah,
and I'm just like, I can't operate the VCR. I'm just stuck with it. It's just
You're
like, I don't
just
want
stuck
this.
in front of the TV, just eyes wide,
like
absolute terror.
I don't remember.
He's fascinated. He keeps staring at it while like intern is like,
American Tail is also a pretty dark film.
See, I considered Secret of Nim.
Oh, okay.
I can still see those owl eyes like in my sleep, just the glowing eyes. Just
I'm actually surprised you didn't talk about Velociraptors from Jurassic Park.
See, that was if someone stole that from me, that was my wheel around.
Well, because like now, whenever I go through and whenever I'm in like a new building or whatever, I'm like, if a Velociraptor came in here, how would I escape?
Really?
Oh, 100%.
See, I don't view it from that. What I view it from is Velociraptor entry points. I like look at the door and be like, that's a lever handle. That's no good. You need to find another door with a round doorknob. Yeah. They can't turn those.
And a lock, some sort of deadbolt.
Yeah, like... Oh man, that one also stuck. And like, it wasn't even, I mean, like the raptor, like everything was scary in that film, right? Like the raptors were pretty terrifying, but it's mostly just the concept of like, you can't just like close the door because it just opens it anyways. It's like, no, I don't want that at all.
Yeah, my house is not very Velociraptor proof. We have a lot of lever handles.
You have a lot of lever. And
you got to figure that out.
I know.
Yeah. You need to pull
It's
that
coming,
together.
Andrew. It's coming. Okay.
The day.
Are you ready? I don't think you are.
No.
Okay, well, after that little slice of trauma for everyone at home listening or driving in their car to have sudden PTSD flashbacks of other movies that they've forgotten about.
Yeah.
So let's jump into Neverending Story. So kick this off with a synopsis. Real simple, real short, real sweet. A troubled boy dives into a wondrous fantasy world through the pages of a mysterious book. Boom, nailed it.
Got it.
Covered it in entirety.
There it is.
So just some basic info on this. This came out in 1984 and was directed by Wolfgang Petersen.
Yeah.
Who you may know from such classics as Das Boot.
Okay.
Perfect Storm.
Okay.
Poseidon.
Mm-hmm.
That's the ship one, right? The cruise ship? Yeah.
And Air Force One.
Wow. He's got a very like storied kind of
he don't have a like this is the type of movie I make.
He's all over the place.
Well, I was actually like going through like Das Boot, Perfect Storm, Poseidon. I was like, oh man, this guy's got a type. He likes boats. And then there's Air Force One. I was like, wait, hold on.
That's a boat in the air, I guess.
I need to reevaluate this one.
I mean, he's at least Air Force One is over the water.
It does crash. It does come down over the water. Yeah, that's fair.
Got him.
So music,
Water pervert confirmed.
just like he and James Cameron need to get a room.
Yeah.
So the music is by Kraus Dolginger and Giorgio Moroder. Giorgio Moroder.
Yes.
So for Moroder, his claims to fame that I could find, he was the recording producer on Berlin's "Take My Breath Away" music video.
Okay.
And also the music producer on Kenny Loggins' "Meet Me Halfway" music video.
Mm-hmm. Didn't he do the Blade Runner soundtrack?
I'm not positive. I didn't see that when I was scrolling back through stuff.
I'll check it real quick.
Check me on that.
Yeah.
So
he did Chariots of Fire. He did.
There we go.
Bum, 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 bum.
Yeah, that's so Klaus's #1 claim to fame that I saw was Das Boot.
Yeah.
So I worked with Wolfgang there. And I'm going to throw in just a small piece of trivia early right here. So when the movie was filmed and scored, it did not have...
No, Vangelis did the music for Blade Runner. Sorry.
Yeah, we talked about... We reviewed Blade Runner.
Yeah.
You even produced it.
You produced it.
Well, I was
you
like,
animal.
that may not be right.
At least he corrected himself.
Maybe
this time.
Vangelis did Chariots of Fire too. Now I gotta look. They're both. They got white hair. They're like synth guys. Come on.
They're all the same. Fun fact, fun trivia bit on that music part. When the film was made and Klaus's orchestral score was done, the
Vangelis did do Chariots of Fire.
Nailed it. The studio basically stepped in and said, hey, this isn't good enough. We want to pull in some more other things. And so like over the director's like sheer just objections, they just inserted the techno pop music.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which the theme song ended up being like very popular. But yeah, so it was just like totally against, like the director did not want this at all. And they're just like, we're doing it.
Interesting.
That's incredible.
Oh no, we're going to get into this. There's some insane stuff in this production. So the movie stars Noah Hathaway, who plays Atreus. He also
Atreyu.
Oh, see, autocorrect keeps getting me on these things. Atreyu. And he also played Boxy in the original Battlestar Galactica.
Oh,
I've never seen the original Battlestar Galactica.
It's the kid of one of the characters.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And then Barrett Oliver, who he doesn't have a ton of stuff. He kind of stopped acting, it looks like. But he was in Frankenweenie.
Okay. I don't know.
That's about as far as I can go.
I don't know what that is.
it's a stop motion animated thing from like
87, something like that.
Frankenweenie?
Yeah, something like that.
No, that was like the 90s or 2000s.
I don't. You know what? Pull it up.
We're just looking it all
Keep
up
looking
today.
it up. All right.
All right.
So it was made on a $27 million budget.
Okay, that's actually pretty impressive.
2012 was Frankenweenie.
No. There's an older version.
Okay.
There's an older version.
Oh, the 84. Okay.
Nailed it. I told you.
Okay, not the stop motion one. Okay.
Yeah.
I forgot that one
They
existed.
actually put bolts on the poor dog.
I think that was 84. That's probably the same year as this one.
It is, yes.
Yeah.
The worldwide box office for Neverending Story, $20.2 million.
Yeah, that's about right.
Absolute financial failure. So, fun fact again on this: at the time, so this was produced in Germany.
Oh, interesting.
At the time of filming, this was the most expensive movie production that had ever been made, not in the U.S. or Soviet Union.
Really?
That's
Yeah,
interesting.
at the time of filming.
Yeah.
Right.
So this is based on the 1979 German fantasy novel of the same name by Michael Ende.
Oh, okay.
Wow, I did
And
not know that.
our one-star reviewer is not entirely knowledgeable. There was a big fight, we'll get into that later, between the author and the production.
Oh, really?
But his name is not in the opening credits. It is in the closing credits.
Oh,
But
okay.
he, like, part of the fight was he was absolutely just like, you are not putting my name at the front of this movie.
Wow.
Oh yeah, no, this movie was an absolute mess in production.
And so, just out of curiosity, and you may not have looked this up or come across it. Like, was the book well received?
The book is very well received.
Okay.
And honestly, I've never, as a kid watching this film, I never thought, oh, well, it's obviously based on a book, or even knew that it was.
Right, yeah,
Because,
same here.
again, opening credits, they don't just say based on the
Right, yeah.
whatever. But now I'm actually kind of curious to go read the book because I want to know. because this is one of those things where like fans of the book big mad about this film.
Right. Yeah.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Interesting.
I wonder how different it is. That's why I'm like,
Clearly very different.
yeah.
So the big problem, other than differences within the actual narrative, is the movie is only about half the book. Like it stops midway through.
Oh, okay.
As far as like it doesn't, as far as book readers are concerned, it does not tell the whole story. It just
go all the way.
ends,
Yeah.
and then there's more that happens.
It's almost like an ending story.
Well, so to that flip side, if you've ever seen the Neverending Story 2 or Part 2, I don't remember.
Oh, there's a Never-Ending Story Part 2?
There's 3 of them.
There's a 3 that I found out when I was looking for this one. The second one is like 1990-ish.
Yeah, something like that.
And the third one was like 96, and it was like straight to VHS.
Yeah.
you know?
So like in a lot of ways, this like adapting this book into a movie is kind of like Dune in that it's one of those things where it's kind of it was done, not done particularly well, perhaps, but there are always interest in doing it, and like there's been bidding wars on rights and like like people squatting on the rights to it to prevent other people from being able to do it. Like it's one of those things where people always keep talking about it and trying to bring it back, right?
Yeah. Let's just let Denis Villeneuve do it.
Well, I mean, you had, I guess 1984 was kind of the year of bad adaptations because David Lynch's Dune came out in 1984 as well.
So at the same time, so Warner Brothers was trying to determine which movie was going to be their tentpole of the summer, and it was between Neverending Story and Supergirl, and they went with Neverending Story. And as it turns out, the choice was neither of them was the right choice. They both bombed at the box office and like didn't make any money. So it's just like apparently just a cursed year for them.
Yeah.
So let's open up. I want to hear some thoughts, guys. Here, spoiler free.
Yeah, I mean, I'll go first.
Start with Ryan.
Yeah.
So I loved this movie as a kid. Like this was one of those things that we had on VHS, and I just wore this thing out. Like we would just put it on over and over again, and I was terrified of the wolf specifically.
Oh man, the wolf is. Ugh.
Yeah, and like I think now looking back, what really scared me was I already had this traumatizing werewolf incident, so I was already down the path when I watched this. But also the animatronics are very uncanny valley unsettling, and I think that just like really drove it home for me as a kid. And so I would put the tape on it. Every time the wolf scene would come up, I would like run behind the couch and wait for it to get over. I'd listen to it and then I'd come back out and watch the rest of it. And I remember we let my cousins borrow it. One of them's older than me, one's younger. And because my mom's like, yeah, Ryan loves this movie.
He watches it all the time.
Yeah, I gave it to him. My aunt drove back that day. Yeah. These kids are crying. Like they can't handle this movie. Like, take it back. And I'm gonna be like, what's weird? What's wrong with them?
And you're like in the back, you're like, yeah, that's right.
So that's my history with this movie. I loved it as a kid. I think I've seen it like throughout the years, just sporadically. Like I want to say in like the late '90s on TBS or something.
It just makes the rounds on.
Just
TV.
watch it like, oh yeah, Neverending Story. And I don't think I've sat down to like watch it in its entirety. And I mean, it's been at least over a decade, maybe two. It's been a while. And watching it this time, like, man. The special effects that I used to think were good just
amazing,
did not hold up.
Not at all.
Like I remember as a kid being like, Falcor's real. They had a real luck dragon. And now I'm like, his mouth ain't even close to matching up with the words. But so watching it as an adult, obviously, it feels like more of like a collection of scenes that just kind of happen.
Yeah.
And like each scene in itself is like this interesting little like sliver of like
it's like a little motif,
little vignette,
and like there's still some.
There we go. That's better.
Yeah, like a little bunch of vignettes instead of it being like an actual cohesive, narrative. And I still enjoy it, but I feel like a lot of my enjoyment is that nostalgia and remembering. Oh, here comes the scene with the what are they called? The sphinxes. The
oracles. Sphinxes.
Oracles. Yeah. Here comes that scene, and here comes the scene with Falcor where he shows up. And so I have like scenes in my head, but like in terms of like an actual movie that I would like watch on a regular basis, this probably ain't it. This is something I would like more than likely like watch a scene from here and there on like YouTube or something. If I'm feeling nostalgia that day and I'm like I want to see the rock biter, I would look it up
Yeah,
and
you're
that
not
would be
gonna,
the end
throw
of
the
it.
film on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't need much more than that. All right, Andrew, weigh in.
So unlike Ryan, I did not see this film until I was already a grown man.
Until you were already a real boy.
Why did you say it like an old prospector? A grown man.
Until I was already a grown man. A golden hills.
So I didn't see it until college, and so I don't have like any of that nostalgia growing up with it or anything like that. And for me, it's very much like the second part of your story is that it's just a film where a lot of stuff just kind of exists and happens.
Yeah.
And there's really not a really good tying narrative to everything.
Yeah.
Like
There's a quest, but it's like
Yeah.
things just kind of happen instead of like tying together. And
So my wife absolutely loves this film, and she definitely grew up with it, and I think that's kind of the going trend is like if you watch this like I'll say with a modern viewing eye, and even then it was almost 15 years ago since I first saw it. It was still it just didn't really like do it for me because it just felt a little boring, I guess. But what really gets me is the screaming kids. Like every scene is either the main character, I can't remember his name, is screaming at
Bastion?
the book.
Bastion.
Yeah, or Atreyu is screaming at something, and it just never stops.
Yeah.
Which is one reason why I don't like the Goonies, is because it's just
this lot
kids
of
just
screaming.
screaming.
I think that's
all
just
the
how
time.
directors told kids to act when they were in the 80s, in the early 80s.
I mean,
Like,
probably.
I need you to just scream.
Yeah, and like in that, it just kind of compounds as the film goes on. Where like I can absolutely get past like a couple, I'll say whiny kids for lack of a better term,
Sure.
In the nicest way possible, where like you have these kind of like kids that like they need to have their moment and then they need to grow up and then move on, and I get that like that's part of this book and part of the story is for that to happen.
Yeah.
But for me, it just really fell flat, and definitely because this is the second time I've watched the film since seeing it the first time, and I remember not liking it the first time, and I was like, well, maybe I just hit it on the wrong day.
I wasn't in the mood.
Yeah. And
whatever.
I watched and watching it again, I was like, yeah, this is pretty much what I remember it being. Now, I will say, in like the puppet work and outside of Falcor was actually pretty phenomenal.
There's a lot of stuff that is good.
Yeah.
So not to like act like all the puppet work.
Yeah,
is
yeah,
bad.
yeah. Like the rock biter's really cool.
Yeah.
and like some of those scenes are really,
The
really,
snail. I like the snail one.
are really, really well done. But they're kind of more vignettes, like we were talking. There's really just kind of like little pieces of a scene or a story, and then everything else is just kind of like, well, it's in a film.
Yeah.
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 Steven?
So I did grow up watching this film, and I got to say, I did not love it as a child. We have dark and scary, creepy wolf. We have Artax. I'm just going to say that. Just everything surrounding Artax. We'll leave it there. Just all kinds of things that were just not wonderful as a child to watch.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They just don't, they leave an impression for the wrong reasons. So, like, but again, this was one of these films where I feel like my parents were just like, "Oh yeah, the kids love this. We'll put it in." And my sister and I both just like, "No, I don't want to watch it again." Not because at the time as kids we thought it was a bad film, but because as kids
It was a scary
just
film.
pretty scary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now I haven't seen this film in at least a decade prior to watching it for this, and yeah, it's rough. It does not hold up like I just assumed. Yeah, it's still a decent film. It's just kind of terrifying as a kid. And watching it now, it's like, no, this is actually kind of boring. Like, there's just not a lot of there. Like the vignette analogy is
Style,
good.
yeah.
It's just bits and pieces, and they don't. Like, I don't want them to sit down and explain how the world works to me.
No.
But also, they don't explain anything.
Well, and also like it's not like the vignettes don't fit together necessarily. They do like work. Like this happens here, then this, but it just feels very like I don't know. It's like very loosely put together is the way to think of it.
Well,
like they have a structure. It's not like there's like they're completely random. New characters, It's like it just doesn't quite gel like it could.
Yeah.
It doesn't flow, like scene to scene does not flow and transition well. Like they don't connect to each other
But
well at all.
I remember being a kid and being like, really blown away by the idea of like the story within a story.
Oh no,
of,
that
like,
concept is
I think it's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
like-
definitely as a kid, like one of my top, like, you know, if you asked, you know, 6-year-old Steven or 8-year-old Steven, what is like one of your top goals in life? And it was like to fly on the back of a luck dragon. Duh. Like, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
How awesome would that be?
I mean, definitely growing up, it's maybe not that specifically for me, but it was more on the lines of it would be really cool to have like an interactive book.
Yes.
Where you
Yeah.
get to like make the decisions of like what the characters are going through and everything
Yeah.
like that, but you still get to like see it in real time is the cool thing. And you know, obviously they're like RPGs, that kind of stuff.
Choose your own adventure
Yeah.
stories. Yeah.
But I thought that like I do really like that concept of it, and I have questions as we move into spoilers or whatever.
Yeah, when we get past the spoiler
Yeah.
wall, we can drill down on a lot of stuff.
Yeah, but like that's the thing is like it's not like I didn't enjoy like most of the movie. It's just like it just doesn't really like tie together very well for me. So like you're just watching scenes and you're like, well, all right, now the next one.
Yeah, and I think 100% this is a movie that if you have nostalgia for it, it is going to push you through the film and your enjoyment's going to
easy.
go up by a large percentage.
Yeah.
Versus like you who didn't watch it as a kid.
As a kid, yeah.
Or even Steven who didn't love it as a kid. Like there's
Well,
still
watching it. Like I have a lot
nostalgia.
of memories associated with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not like at the end of the day, it's not a very long film. You know, it's not like this is like a 3-hour commitment.
No, yeah.
It's like it can feel like that sometimes. You're just like, oh, come on, let's move forward. And interestingly enough, so the film was edited for the American market by Steven Spielberg.
Oh, interesting.
He's friends with Wolfgang Peterson, and so he did that like for him as a favor. And just kind of looking at it, it wasn't like they were like, "Hey, this scene won't fly. You can't have the scene in America." It was literally just like, "Hey, every scene, like you just kind of linger here for a few extra seconds. We're gonna get rid of that. I'm gonna drop a few seconds here and a few seconds there."
Yeah.
There are other editing choices that happen in the film that we'll get into in spoiler territory because they happen for a reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we can't get into that
Obviously.
if somehow
Yeah.
you haven't seen this film yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, like the effects were really ambitious, and obviously they don't hold up super great
Well,
anymore.
and there's a lot that does though. Like a lot of
is
the
a
matte
lot, yeah.
paintings are really cool looking.
Really cool.
Yeah, well, the set design is actually really good too.
Set design, like a lot of the miniatures used,
Well, but
like,
I
for
like
the
the
buildings.
shot of like coming into the ivory tower is gorgeous. Like there are good stuff in there, but other like Falcor flying.
When he's flying, it's
Not,
kind of
not great.
Yeah.
But yeah, like the puppet work, the snail, the bat, the
Yeah.
rock biter, a lot of the other creatures, like they go hard on creature design in this. Like just the little council.
Yeah.
When you're first introduced to the ivory tower, and you have like the triple face
with the big heads, yeah.
Well, even the like the big like turtle guy or whatever.
Oh, yeah,
with
yeah.
the big animatronic head and he like
Yeah.
blunts snot
Yeah.
on him. Yeah, like it's
keep sneezing,
Yeah.
allergic to humans.
yeah.
But yeah, so from that point, I mean, would y'all? Well, one, would we be rewatching this? Would we be recommending this?
No.
So
No,
yeah,
no, Andrew's just out.
I would only recommend this to people that have
Already seen it.
already
well
seen it.
either nostalgia for it,
Don't watch it fresh.
well, or if you're just really curious. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like I think if you're like, oh, this is going to be the most epic fantasy movie I've ever seen. No, it's a kids movie that like
no,
gained a lot of popularity. Go
I
ahead.
will
Yeah.
say, I do think that a lot of things that take place in this film and that are pulled from the story is very inspiring of a lot of films that are going to come after it.
Sure. Yeah.
Right? Like it really informed and influenced a lot of stuff that comes later.
Oh, 100%.
It's just as of now, if you've seen those other things, you're just kind of look at this and be like, "Well, we've been there and done this." Like, I don't need to see the framework or the
Right.
rough.
You've
the rough
seen the
sketch.
refined ideas
Yeah,
that are
yeah.
that are put forth here. So yeah, I would only recommend you watch this if you're just curious about it or if you have nostalgia for it. And then as far as rewatching it again, I don't know. It'll be a long time before I just decide I'm just gonna watch the entire movie again. I would probably just like look up scenes, specific parts of it, just to kind of tickle the old nostalgia
Or
go
go in and look at like the rock biter and be like, man, like how did they like the stop motion or going on here is really cool, right? I definitely, if you are like super into fantasy and you want to like see like a slice of an era, right? This is an example of
Oh,
that.
100%.
But in terms of like just like, hey, I'm just going to sit down tonight. Let's put some popcorn on. No, not the only way that's going to happen is if this is like your childhood memories and maybe your wife never saw it. Like my wife never saw it. She didn't see this growing up, and so we watched.
What did she think about it?
I think her words were, "I have never been so bored in a movie."
Oh wow! See, to me, at least the insane levels of whoever was on cocaine when they wrote this, what you would think would carry you through a little bit of like, what is going on here? Yeah. The never-ending ad read.
Oh, please don't do this to me.
What?
I already don't really like this song.
This song's awesome.
So, speaking of other things that are never-ending, if you want to go to a place where you can find a never-ending source of content,
Oh, God, I like that.
SpoilersIntendedPodcast.com is there for you. You can go there, you can find all of our previous episodes, links to things like Discord, Patreon, and socials.
Yeah. We also have a Discord where we get to talk about all sorts of stuff that aren't necessarily podcast related, like what games we're playing, what food we're eating,
music we're listening to.
what music we're listening to that probably is a never-ending story.
Well, and we do have some podcast related discussions on there. So if you hear something in an episode, you want to like talk to us about it, get in the Discord.
Yeah.
And then, also another way to interact with us is on social media. We have Facebook and Instagram. If you see us posting something, please like and share it. And also, if you're like, I wonder what they're reviewing next week, that's where we post it. Every week we'll post in there, hey, this is what we're covering next week. We'd love for you to like watch along with us.
We would greatly appreciate it.
Yes, definitely. All right, and we are back.
That was almost the never-ending ad read.
Back from the never-ending ad read.
It just barely ended, Andrew.
Designed only to torture Andrew.
Oh, man.
And entertain Ryan and I.
I mean, that's fine.
That's what's actually important here, that we're entertained.
You can be entertained by my misery.
So on that note, we have officially crossed the spoiler wall. If you do not want to be spoiled on a movie that is almost 40 years old as of this recording.
Wow. 39 years old.
Time to check out, but we're going to carry on with some spoilers. We're going to kick it off with a little bit of trivia. Yeah. All right, so I talked about this a little bit pre-spoiler wall that Michael Ende, the author of the book, was unhappy with the adaptation of his story, right? So when I tell you how unhappy he is, what I actually said is he so strongly disagreed with the deviations in the story that were made, he requested the studio either change the film's name or cease production altogether.
Wow.
Jeez.
The studio told him,
no.
That's not happening.
LOL.
And you know what? He said
left unread.
Yeah.
And you know what? Well, yeah, they left him unread until he showed up with a lawyer and sued them.
Oh, wow.
Which he also lost.
Oh, God.
The only
judge
thing,
said LOL.
the only thing in the deal that he got out of this that he actually wanted was his name to not be in the opening credits.
That's crazy.
Dude, he apparently was furious about this.
Wow. Well, I'm curious at like what the big changes were.
Well, so a big part of it, right, is this is only half of the book.
Yeah.
So like the other half of the book goes through him like basically rebuilding Fantasia.
Oh.
And like
is that Never-Ending Story Part 2?
I barely remember Never-Ending Story.
So the thing is, like, I want to say yes in that sort of like the core concept. And they kind of cover it right at the end of the movie where they talk about, well, you have your wishes and your hopes, and every wish you make helps to rebuild it.
Yeah.
But that is part of Never-Ending Story 2 is that Bastian is like making wishes. Mm-hmm. But like it's not.
He's not making good wishes because he's a stupid
but
kid.
Like at the time, like Fantasia's already rebuilt, it feels like, because he's in Fantasia.
Yeah, he's in Fantasia.
Yeah,
okay,
like,
gotcha.
So like it's not the same,
Mm-hmm.
I don't really, again, I would like to actually read the book now.
I know there's
really
a baby
know.
rock biter in the second movie.
One. Yeah, but
I remember that distinctly.
That's just the rock biter who's,
And I remember as a
someone.
kid, like they changed the cast, like all the characters are different.
Yeah, all
None
the
of the same
cast
actors.
constantly changes. Yeah, from movie to movie.
So I remember being like, oh, what is this?
But yeah, so let's see some other trivia out there. So if you want to ride Falcor, you can.
Explain.
Falcor.
Elaborate.
You can't leave that hanging.
Falcor is actually a 43-foot long motorized animatronic creature.
I figured. I don't think a luck dragon actually
Yeah,
exists.
he has
What?
over 6,000 plastic scales and pink feather fur, including a head that is 3 foot long and wide.
Okay.
And he
if you-
smells like a carp.
Probably. And if you want to ride him, if you go to the Bavaria Film Park in Munich, Germany, that's where he is. So
Like the actual
animatronic is
cool.
there,
That's
and
cool.
you can get on his back. They have a blue or green screen behind him, and they have like a video screen that like basically superimposes you in the clouds on
Oh,
his
man.
back. So you
Well,
can like
man,
actually
this-
do the scene.
When my wife listens to this, she's gonna be mad because she was over. In
she was just over in Europe.
She was just
Oh.
over in Europe, and she probably could have done it.
She got clowned on. She didn't know that Falcor was
probably
literally
could
there.
have.
She could have got on top of his head and went, yeah! Man.
So I've got some more stuff it's going to come up as we go.
Yeah.
But let's move into some spectacle.
Sure,
Who wants to go first?
I'll start.
Let's
Yeah.
hear it.
So I actually mean like the film itself is fine. Like I've already said, I thought the set designs were quite good.
Yeah.
There's a lot of animatronics that were fantastic, or puppets and that kind of stuff that really did a good job at selling the fantasy kind of style of the story. The only thing that really I didn't like was Falcor himself, just because he looked. I'm not gonna say goofy.
Yeah.
But like he just seemed like
I mean,
he
he is kind of goofy. He's just kind of a long dog.
yeah, and I think maybe that's what it was.
Yeah, Luck Dragon, you're a long dog.
But like the effects and stuff were quite good. I felt. I mean, outside
especially
of
for
like
the time.
yeah, like the
Yeah.
only parts that really just don't hold up are just the flying sequences with Falcor.
Yeah, in
everything
the-
else
in the sky.
surrounding that is actually quite good.
I mean, the bits with like the scientist, right, in the
Yeah.
bucket and stuff, where they're doing
Yeah.
kind of like forced perspective to make them look smaller than him.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But then also like the actual set design of all that.
Yeah.
And like another thing that terrified me as a kid, man, those sphinxes.
Oh
yeah, the
they're
oracles.
scary. Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, again, 1980s kid movie made in
boobs.
Germany, just boobs.
Oh, yeah. I had mixed feelings about the oracles as a kid. I was like, that's interesting, but I'm scared. What's happening? Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like I really think that like if there, I'll say if there's anything good about this film,
Here he goes.
the actual
Never ending story apologist.
the actual like costume design and puppeteering and everything like that is pretty phenomenal.
Set design is pretty good.
Yeah,
yeah.
Like there are definitely parts of this film that do hold up over time. It's again, it's not for me because the story I just wasn't compelling for me. But beyond that, like visually, I can absolutely appreciate it.
Yeah, I think I don't have much to add other than just to agree with what you said, and then add that like I think a lot of the matte paintings they did for like the establishing shots and stuff.
Yeah,
looked
like
really
Ivory
well done.
Tower and whatnot.
Yeah.
And then the costuming, like there's a lot of the like the old guy in the basket. His
Yeah.
whole I'm pretty sure that's his actual one tooth. I don't know. Like, it looks really good, whatever it is. But his whole character design and like,
Well, also,
his,
like,
look
they-
is great.
Him and his wife have a very Princess Bride.
I was gonna say very
Miracle
Princess
Max
Bride. No.
vibe going on there. Yeah.
As a kid, I would get those two scenes conflated
Confused.
as to which
Yeah.
movie they
Wait,
were
did
in.
Princess Bride come out first?
I think second, because
Well,
this
I
is
think
84.
it's 88 for Princess Bride.
Oh, okay,
So
so that means that at this point, like that was like possibly a trope that they were just making fun of.
Could have been, yeah.
a little bit, yeah.
yeah, let me.
Yeah, I looked at it. I'm pretty sure it was like 88. But so it was. But as a kid,
87.
You'd watch them
We're
like
close.
side
Yeah.
by side,
Yeah.
and I didn't understand how movie release schedules work. So I would think back on the Neverending Story, and when it would get to that scene, I'd be expecting the Princess Bride.
Oh, like kind of slapstick comedy.
and then I'd be like, oh yeah, it's this guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought the special effects. Especially for the time, were probably
good,
pretty good,
yeah.
with the exception of like the compositing, like the blue screen stuff.
Yeah, but like you
hold
go to like the turtle scene,
Yeah.
right? And all the mud and muck. Like also, boy, what a brutal set to be on, right?
Yeah.
Or
Well, and also
however.
like with the turtles specifically, when he's climbing on the back, and then it cuts to the wide shot, and it's just like rising out of the mud, and it's obviously like a puppet, and there's like a little action figure kid on top of it. I don't think you could tell that on VHS back in the '80s on my tiny television, but like now in like
4K,
HD,
yeah.
I'm like, oh, it's a little thing up there, but it still was done really well. Like when you think of the constraints of the time, and like when they did this, like I think they did a really good job executing a lot of fantasy visuals on a budget with no computers, essentially.
Yeah, which there were several scenes from the book that were storyboarded out for the movie that they just cut because they were just like, there's no way.
We can't do this.
There's no. It's kind of like George Lucas with the prequels, right? Where he's like, the technology just does not exist for us to do this, or the money, or both. Both is good. So we're just not going to do these scenes. But yeah. So for me, this is a chance for trivia on Spectacle, right? You ready for this? This is where the 80s gets weird, and apparently they were just like, we need more extras for our ivory tower scene, with like the big group of people concerned. So if you go back and you watch that scene, you can find Yoda, Mickey Mouse, Chewbacca, C-3PO, Ewoks, E.T., and Gumby are in that crowd.
I did see E.T.
Yeah,
Really?
yeah,
Like,
E.T.
like
stands
the
out.
actual
I am
costumes and puppets those are
quite
from, or like
possibly. I don't know,
approximation.
honestly. I don't-
Probably
I-
an approximation.
I think that
Okay.
they have their own little bit of Fantasia twist to them.
Right.
You know, if you got up close, you probably like, well, this is kind of horrifying. But, yeah,
Right.
Because a lot of things in Fantasia, when you get up close, you're like, that's kind of terrifying.
Kind of horrifying. Yeah.
The Mickey Mouse is just a Chuck E. Cheese head. Just
Right. That's been burnt a little bit.
like an actual
How's it going, kid?
Kill me! Kill
like
me!
the actual rat snout for a nose.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I just shivered.
So let's. I mean, again, right? I mean, for the most part, the effects, because there's a lot of practical going on here.
Yeah.
It holds
It
up.
holds up.
Yeah.
Except the green screen flying sequences, because you just can't.
Yeah,
over
I
time.
mean, it's tough to kind of emulate that back in the 80s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So performances?
I already went first.
I know. I looked at you just out of habit, Ryan.
I'll go first. That happens a lot. Like, we just look at Andrew
They just
first.
stare at me the whole time.
Focal point of
Wide-eyed,
the
no
show.
blinks.
So, like, I remember as a kid being like pro Atreyu and anti Bastion. I remember being like, Bastion,
You're like, this kid's a putz.
get it together, kid. No wonder they're bullying you. You have such a punchable face. And then, like, Atreyu, I was like, this is my guy. Like, let's go on an adventure. He's like, I'll do it. I'm like 8. I don't care. I'm killing buffalo.
He's a great.
Yeah.
He's a great warrior, dude. You're like
Yeah.
13.
He also has that power play negotiation, like, we sit for a war. He's like, fine then, I'm out. And
yeah.
they're like, oh, wait, hold on.
Like, wow, this kid's really going places.
Yeah, I mean, I think the performances were, like, adequate for a kid's movie in the early 80s. Like, nothing really jumped out at me outside of, now, I'll say this, like, the voice and the puppeteering of, like, the turtle. I thought that was
It
great.
was really good. Yeah.
That was really well executed. That whole scene was, but just that the performance there from the puppeteer that was, you know, or the puppeteers that were, you know,
There's
running-
probably more than one person.
yeah. That was
Jabba,
great.
They have like 12 people in
Yeah,
him.
just crammed in a turtle.
And I think the voice of Falcor did a really good job because
good.
it had that like almost like grandfatherly, you know, like you trust this dragon immediately.
Yeah.
They did a good job casting that because when you see him and it's kind of this like, what is this big puppy dog that can fly? And then he has the voice. It's like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, I don't know. What'd y'all think?
I mean, I'm kind of on the same level. You know, I don't want to like just dog on, you know, one kid actors and
Right.
that kind of stuff. Because I mean, like they did exactly
Probably what they were told
what
to do.
they were told to do. And but I definitely will say the voice acting for like Falcor and I love the turtle scene. It's great.
Yeah.
You know, and that definitely helps kind of push you along in the film, I think, just because Falcor is introduced pretty early. Well, halfway through, I guess. Yeah.
It's relative. It's about halfway, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you know, it's still a kid's movie. Like, there's still just a lot of just like characters that exist for just to have like 1 or 2 lines of dialogue to move the plot along. And then,
Or to, you know, be a merchandising opportunity.
yeah.
Let's sell a racing snail.
Man, if they sold that,
I love the
would've
racing
bought
I love the
snail.
racing snail, yeah.
that. Yeah.
So,
Steven, any
for
thoughts
me,
on performance?
I mean, it's like, again, you know, it's kid actors in the 80s. So I want to throw some stuff out, some caveats for y'all that might influence some opinions, right?
Okay.
So that's not Noah Hathaway's voice.
What?
They dubbed over him. Virtually none of his original voice lines are used in the film.
Oh, interesting.
It's almost all. Actually, a lot of the characters. So our racing snail man, played by Deep Roy,
Yeah.
He's completely overdubbed.
I could tell with him because
Yeah.
his
It's a
lips
little
didn't
off,
match
yeah.
up.
But
I
like,
didn't know about Noah Hathaway.
yeah, Atreyu's like they did a good job. They were like, we got to get this one right.
Was he like going through puberty or something? And it was like,
So
hey, we gotta go find the horn.
So apparently his voice was very high pitched because he was 13
Yeah.
at the time, which Bastion's actor Barrett Oliver, I think is. Barrett Oliver. He was 11 at the time. So these are pretty young kids too. Yeah, with a fair amount of demands being put on them.
Yeah, for sure. Because I mean, like they're both very dramatic roles.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I was going somewhere else there with some demands. You all were talking about, well, they're kids, right? They just do what they're told. Yeah. So Wolfgang Petersen is pretty famous for injuring actors because he wants them in his scene. Oh no. Yeah. You want to influence your thoughts about performance. So Noah Hathaway was hurt twice during filming.
Really?
Once because he was thrown from the horse and stepped on.
Oh no.
Oh no. It gets way worse.
Where did he get stepped on?
I don't. It doesn't say.
Oh, it doesn't. Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
It was, I think, Toledo. Oh, you meant on the bike. Okay.
But, so most of this was actually filmed in Germany. Just
Which is weird that he got stepped on in Toledo.
Toledo,
It doesn't
really
make
hard,
any
it's a long
sense.
leg, yeah.
It's a weird shot.
No, so the Swamp of Sadness scene, right, where Artax goes out. So they filmed that. They put that horse was there.
Yes.
Yeah.
That horse was on an elevator under all that muck. That's how they lowered it into.
Yeah.
So Noah's leg got stuck in that elevator mechanism.
Oh my.
Incredible.
And he was pulled under the water by the mechanism.
Incredible. What a way to go.
By the time they got him out, he was unconscious.
Oh my
Oh
gosh.
my gosh.
So if you watch that scene, like it doesn't really have as great an ending as you like. It doesn't feel like it plays all the way out
It
because
just
he
like fades to black.
yeah, it just kind of cut because he got pulled the frick under, and like that's all they get for a shot.
So Wolfgang was like, they pulled this kid out, and he's like, how many more takes do you have in you? As the paramedics are carrying him away.
So again, carrying on with that same theme, when he confronts Gamork, the wolf, at the end.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that was a robot puppet, right? And the people in charge of this production apparently didn't stop to think about, hey, we're just throwing a robot puppet at a 13-year-old kid. Like, he's not a grown adult. And like, how heavy is this robot? So the
They
answer is
couldn't get like a non-robotic, like a stuffed animal version of it to toss at
they
him?
just threw the animatronic at him.
Like this isn't RRR where you have the stuffed horse.
Yeah.
So when he gets hit, so that scene, they only shot it once.
Yeah.
Because when he gets hit by that and like he's underneath it and he's like trying to like shake himself off, that's because they almost knocked him unconscious with how hard it hit him.
I just picture Wolfgang Petersen smoking a cigarette. They're like, what do we do? Throws a puppet at him. The whole puppet? Yes. And he puts the cigarette out in his palm because he's Wolfgang Petersen.
But like
Art is paid.
according to Noah, like its paw came up when they threw it, so its claw like went right on. Like he almost lost his eye.
Oh my
In
gosh.
this. So again, they only shot that once because they were just like, hey, we can't do this again because we might actually like severely injure him.
Yeah.
For the third time of the film.
Yeah. And then imagine you get to the end of this production, right? You've been sucked under a mud elevator. You've been hit with a big robot wolf puppet. And they're like, we're not using any of your audio.
Yeah.
Well, like no, and then Wolfgang's like, that's just Hollywood, kid.
Yeah. And he puts the cigarette out on the kid's arm. Just like, get out of here, man.
like on the kid's head.
Just like on his forehead.
Welcome to the business.
And I guess I'll go ahead and I'll throw this in right now just because might as well get it out there while we're talking about it. So there have been like long-standing internet rumors that they drowned the horse. in
No,
the
there were
swamp
two
scene.
horses.
Yep.
They drowned both of them?
No, God,
Oh.
get out of here.
Like it's been confirmed by multiple people on the production. Like, no, the horse is fine.
Well, and it
the horse
it
was
went-
better off than Noah was.
and it got to go live a very good life on a farm.
Well, it was they originally,
Away from mud elevators.
They were originally going to gift the horse to Noah, but then he spent so much time with the horse.
After he got stepped on, he's like, I'm good on that horse, actually.
No, like apparently, I presumably they had like a bond there, but it would have cost so much because again, they're in Germany to get the horse back to the U.S. and everything else that they were just like, well, no, the horse stays in Germany. So
You can visit him whenever you're here, though. Pretty much. Wow.
So yeah, this is this whole production is just
Wild.
bonkers.
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
It cracked me. I don't know where I was just scrolling through reading like, well, Wolfgang Petersen as the director is known for injuring his actors. Like, how old were these kids? So just throwing them under the bus.
There's probably a lot of like rules and stuff in place now because of movies like this.
Because of him.
Yeah.
Wolfgang made all the rules.
Well, he made them happen.
He's the reason.
He made them
He's
happen.
the reason.
Yeah.
Someone at the studio is like, we have to stop this man.
Someone's like, so who was responsible for this one? That was me. So what about this one? Also me.
And then he put the cigarette out of the guy's head that's asking the question.
Yeah.
Get out of here.
It was also me.
I don't even know if he smokes. I'm just like painting this picture of this.
He's German in the 80s.
It's gotta be, right?
Yeah.
Wolfgang is staring at the guy that's asking him all these questions, and he was like, "This is also me."
Add this one to your book. So how about music score?
Yeah, I mean that song's a banger. Like
Opening
as a
theme.
kid, I
So,
loved that song.
I don't really like the song, mostly because it's an earworm and it just never goes away.
It sticks.
Yeah,
it's
it's
kind
the
of-
never-ending song.
Yeah.
Also, and I know nothing other than that opening lyric. Like they start singing, and
Yeah.
I'm like, like I know the tune to it, but I have no clue what they're saying.
And now I had heard this song well before I had seen the film.
So how did you hear the song but not see the film? Because the only time I interacted with it was in the
Seriously.
context
it
of
just
the movie.
showed up. I don't know.
So
But it's like they played on the radio.
Well, that song did chart in the U.S.
Yeah,
I don't
before
know
he
how
was
far.
born.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's also true.
Wow, that's so rude.
So I'm
That's
genuinely
actually
curious, like
true.
what weird radio station were you listening to in like the early 90s that they were like,
Look,
check this out.
to the oldie stations, we only play the best of the 70s, 80s, and 90s. Andrew's like looking at it like, wait, it's 1999. It's like, never-ending story.
Yeah, they're like the best of the 70s, 80s, 90s. And also the Never Ending Story theme song.
But yeah, I mean, so the synth music is actually, I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it fits the time.
I don't know if it necessarily fits the movie itself.
I don't think it fits the movie.
But it's pretty good music.
Yeah, it's good music,
Yeah.
but yeah, I like there is a little bit of a juxtaposition, I guess, of like this really nice synth music and then never-ending story.
Yeah. I think for me, again, it's in the nostalgia thing of
Yeah.
like I associate these scenes with the music so like
Yeah,
heavily
intrinsically, yeah.
that like I can't separate them, you know, like so for me it doesn't feel like a juxtaposition. You
Yeah.
know, it feels like
You're like, oh, this is exactly
that's
what it
the
is.
music for this scene. What are you talking about? But yeah, it is definitely a choice. They like made the choice.
It
of,
is
like,
a choice.
Yeah, we want Marauder to do our
It was a choice. It was made against the director's wishes.
Wait, really?
I said that at
the director or the
spoiler.
author of the original book. Sorry.
No,
The director.
Well, the author was already out of the store.
He's
of the
already
picture.
done,
They
right,
already
okay.
told him to go screw himself.
So the director's like, I don't want this music. And they're
Yeah,
like, too bad.
They were like, the producers or whoever in the studio were like, you know, it's the 80s, right? And he's like, I'm aware. Like, you know what kind of music this movie needs? Like, no. But also, yes.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's great.
it's
Steven,
just-
what do you think?
I mean, again, like, I think both pieces of the music are good.
Mm-hmm.
I would be interested to find, like, you know, the unreleased version where there is no techno electronica or whatever in there. Just
no techno
just to see what it's like. Yeah, it's like they let the elevator scene play all the way out.
You hear people screaming, cut! Just bubbles coming from the mud.
There's like one hand flailing. Oh, poor kid.
Yeah.
So, but back to the music. So you just think like,
I think again, I don't know that I sit down and be like, I'm going to watch. But at the same time, I'm trying to remember, you know, the animated like Lord of the Rings / Hobbit films. Because I feel like those actually also had some of this kind of music in it.
like
At bits and pieces, like kind of
I feel like they
electronic.
had like the synthetic strings.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't like they didn't have the money for an orchestra, so they got a dude with a keyboard in the 70s.
But it feels very 70s and 80s.
Like a Mellotron.
Like the animated one?
Yeah.
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 Yeah, no, it does. It's not like they didn't have the budget for
An orchestra.
For an
Yeah.
orchestra, so it's all electronic.
Right. So
Or most of it's
It's one of
electronic.
these things where I'm like, you know, electronica doesn't belong in my fantasy movie. But at the same time, it's like, you know, if you stretch it far enough, you could probably make this work.
Yeah.
Like if you
for
want to
sure.
just put Falcor on screen doing that little like serpentine undulation thing he does when he flies, and you're just like you probably make it work somehow.
What was the noise again?
I
wanna say-
cat up there just
He goes by.
Didn't Legend have some like synthy stuff in it too?
I mean, it was the 80s, so probably.
Everything probably had
Yeah,
something
like-
there.
But I mean, again, the only piece of the music that I'm familiar with outside of the film is just
The Never-Ending Story.
Never-Ending Story, because it just sticks with you forever. I hadn't thought about that song in forever until it came on. It's like,
and it just never goes away.
It's like, oh man, this is stuck with this for a while. So plot.
Yeah, plot.
Yeah.
Boy.
Is there a plot?
There
Yes.
is.
I mean, there is.
Okay, so like looking at the actual plot, and I've got a bunch of like random thoughts I jotted down that are mostly plot related that I want to go through too.
Okay.
But before, like, to be serious, put on my serious hat for a second, right? I think like the plot of this movie, the problem with it, other than it being just like a tenuous thing at best, is that they don't give us really enough, I guess, like world building in order for a lot of this stuff to make sense contextually. It's just kind of things are happening.
Yeah,
right?
we get the rock biter kind of explains the nothing for us,
Yes.
right? And like the problem the world is facing. But we don't really get a whole lot. We don't really get to learn much about the rules of the world.
No, yeah.
Because like especially up until you hit the turtle and Falcor, it's kind of like, oh, these can also be here. Like, I didn't, what?
Yeah. And I feel like this type of a story would probably benefit more from obviously being like a TV show or something.
Yeah.
instead
Yeah,
of
to
a
give
movie,
you a little bit more.
where you could have like some context of like, so like when the rock biter rolls up, you know, the snail rider, they know what a rock biter is. Like, everybody seems to be aware of each other, and they're all from like, I'm from the south, I'm from the north, I'm from the west, you know, and the nothing is like encroaching. So they do a decent job of like setting up that or whatever. I guess it's like the wolf. What's his name?
Gamork.
Gamork. That's such a weird name.
Yeah.
It is
So he's here as an agent of the nothing.
because he just likes murder and chaos.
Right, and so then I was
question mark.
I
don't
was
know.
like, so did nothing like call him?
What's
or how
it's
did-
like what's in it
But
for
like,
him?
did the guy like at the bookstore? Is he the one that like
yeah,
he's like the mastermind and he sent the Gamork in?
right. And so like I felt like the plot was missing like a piece of like, so the wolf is there to chase, but like I feel like the wolf should have been justified a little bit more. Other than it was just like this extra random thing. Like the nothing's already here. You have your
It
big
almost
bad,
attacks
if you
him
will.
one time and then he just shows up at the end and then
And then he's
that's
just
it.
there at the end. And you're
Yeah.
like, how did he happen to get here too? You know?
yeah.
And then
By
he
all
says,
accounts, we shouldn't have made it this far.
he says something like, I work, you know, for the nothing or whatever. And then the nothing is controlled by something.
Yeah.
It's like people not believing, you know, back in not having dreams.
Back in New York.
Yeah.
or
And it's
wherever
like,
they were.
so they start to
Somewhere
kind
in
of,
Washington State. Apparently, it just looks a lot like New York. Although apparently, I think those scenes are all filmed in Vancouver.
Of course. Yeah, because
Probably,
Vancouver is an everything city.
Yeah.
but like, I think what they needed was more connections. They were like, show more people in the real world not having dreams, giving
There's
up
like,
on
oh,
dreams.
is this his dad?
Yeah, like
yeah,
connect it
Those kind
somehow.
of things where like I wanted that connection plot wise, because then it gives you a little bit more emotional investment where, you know, obviously he's lost his mother and him and his father are trying to like basically come to a new normal.
Yeah.
And, you know, generally in these kind of stories, the parental figure is generally the bad guy, like
Quote,
quotation
unquote.
marks.
Yeah.
A lot of
like,
those
They don't
movies.
get it. The man doesn't get it, right?
yeah. And with that, I was definitely expecting that there would be some kind of tie-in with that of like him coming to terms with obviously loss of his mother, and then his father coming to terms with his loss of his wife, and now he has
Take care of the kid.
has to take care of the kid.
Yeah.
And that kind of thing of like, oh, the nothing is basically just this analog for that kind of conflict.
the dread, or,
bleakness.
Yeah.
Well, they set it up. And
it
they just don't do anything with
it
it.
just
Yeah.
doesn't
Just
happen.
let it-
So
sit
what I
there.
wrote down here in my notes was like, this dad puts orange juice and a raw egg in a blender and then tells his kid to man up and stop daydreaming like he's 6 years old after his mom died.
Buck up, kid.
Yeah, like, as he sucks down a raw egg and orange juice. Y'all were wild in the 80s.
are nuts, man.
What health craze was this? Like, I was like, again, never caught that as a kid as being weird. I don't know why, but like, on this watching, I was watching
back when you were a kid, it was the 80s. You're like, yeah, it's normal. My dad just did that.
Yeah, I'm like,
I was watching this. I was like, what are you doing?
yeah, I'm watching him
psycho
crack the
is this
egg and pour the
guy?
orange juice. I go, what is happening? And I'm like,
excuse me, I don't remember this.
and then I was waiting for him to like put something else in. Like, what's next? A little bit of beer, malt liquor? What's happening?
Like, I almost expected him to just like do it, make it while he's telling the kid to bug up, and like takes a sip. Oh, it's terrible. Like,
I thought he was going to pour it up for the kid.
Yeah,
that was going to be wild.
Like, you know what?
Here.
You need to get strong like me and hand him the glass.
Yeah.
Like, oh.
This will put hair on your chest.
He's just doing his best Gaston impression.
Yeah.
He just eats 12 dozen eggs.
My interpretation was like, Mom must have been the only one that knew how to cook breakfast. And the dad is just like, you got yourself some cereal, right? I don't know how to do this. Maybe it's orange juice and an egg in a blender. I don't know what I'm doing.
Orange juice is a breakfast thing, right? Eggs are a
Yeah.
Put them together?
It would have been great if the kid's like, what are you doing? Dad's like, I'm struggling too. You know? That would have been great.
My jaw hurts. Oh my gosh.
What did y'all think about the plot?
Well, so like I feel like the actual kind of framing story of like Bastion's side of things, right? Like that's a good beginning premise, right? Like we put our character in a pretty rough spot.
He gets thrown into a dumpster.
He's got the full on 80s bullying going on where it's like, give me your lunch money. Don't have any money in the dumpster.
I love that there's all these adults too watching these kids chase this kid, and they're like, whoa, better not intervene. This is bully territory. I don't want to end up in a dumpster. Better walk on. I didn't see nothing here.
I just like watching that. My wife was just like, "What is going on?" I was like, "This is what bullying was like in the '80s.
It was
they
just
take your money, throw you in a dumpster,
and you're supposed to stay there like the trash you are."
But like the framing story, the setup, right, feels good.
Yeah.
But there's not really any payoff to it. Like there's no like Bastion's life changes in that he gets to ride Falcor.
And that's it. And like when he gets to chase the bullies through wherever he is.
The streets, Keep wishing and dreaming, kid. And that's it. And it's not just like he comes to terms with losing his mother or like
well, it could
he and
maybe
his dad
be like inferred that happens.
Guess,
but
like,
it's definitely like it's not even alluded
nebulous.
to.
Yeah, it's nebulous at best.
And then, you know, the flip side of this is our actual story within Fantasia. There's a lot of stuff that just isn't really explained. It just happens, right? Yeah. So we summon the greatest warrior from the plains.
Right.
He shows up to the council
to
accept this quest, and once they agree you should accept the quest, what is the one condition he is given at that minute?
You got to turn in all your weapons.
Do this quest with none of your weapons. Why? You summoned the greatest warrior. Give me your bow and arrow, kid. But this is what I kill. Give me the bow and arrow.
Yeah.
So apparently in the book, there is an explanation for this.
Oh, okay.
In that you can't bear the Orin, the sigil, while carrying weapons.
That's one sentence.
That's one line.
That's one line.
And like you could even have the kid where he can't come to terms with giving up his weapons. This isn't the kind of war he fights, like battles he fights, right?
Yeah.
Like so simple. And they're just like, nah, just you can't travel without weapons. That was important to say. Why? Oh, just say it.
Yeah.
Like
no weapons, idiot. Was this your first quest? What?
That's how everybody does. And then again, with stuff that was explained in the book that isn't explained in the movie, right? So they're in the swamp of sadness.
Yeah.
And if you become sad, you get sucked down.
Yeah.
So Atreyu watches his loyal horse sucked down because the horse gives him to the sadness, right? Is Atreyu not sad?
Oh, yeah. He's like crying about it.
Yeah.
And he's just like floating on top. And I'm like, must not be that broke up.
Must not be that rough,
Artax.
huh? Again, in the book, the Orin protects him there. It's the one of the purposes of the sigil. Wouldn't it be great if we had that kind
Just
of explanation?
Or he looks down at the Orin.
It glows.
He's like, why am I not
something.
seeing?
Yeah, like anything. Like,
I do like the idea that in this, fantasy universe, when you buy a horse, like you basically
buy a horse.
You like, hey, I want this horse. You check 3 things. You check their gums. That's a good check for like overall health. You watch it gate, and then you stand it next to a puddle and tell it a sad story. And if it starts sinking, you're right out of there. You got to get a different horse.
Not good enough.
Does this horse have chronic depression?
I need this horse to be ready for some sad stories.
Yeah. So for me, I mean, again, this is a kid's film, so I'm not trying to like judge it too hardly or too hard on. Essentially, just like it's meant to, that kind of thing. You always can wish for more. Yeah. And if you get it, then that's great.
That's the plot of Never-Ending Story too. Thank you.
But for me, the basically the whole plot is just kind of finished by the power of friendship, kind of. Like
the Empress needs a new name. Why? did she forget it? Like
Them's
what?
just
Like,
the rules.
It's just
it's just the rule.
and which you can have again, it's the 80s. We can have a weird cocaine fueled fantasy world where that's just the rule. But like just
tell us that's a rule.
More
So
acceptable.
the real thing that bothers me in the end is that up until this point,
Bastion?
Bastion. Yeah, Bastion.
Sorry, I was like, which one's Benton?
I'm not sure where he's going with this one.
Yeah.
Bastion has clearly he's a pretty smart kid, but he's reading the story, and they are clearly reacting to what he is what
he
he's doing.
Screams and they
and
hear it in the story.
It takes him so long to realize he's like, no, there's no way it would work. Just try it, kid.
No, that's when I was a kid. Again, I would get frustrated with him. I'm like, you moron. They can hear you. Do the stuff. Just say a name out a window. Let's get it going.
Ashley. I don't know.
Yeah, get in there. Also, can we talk a little bit about the plot of this kid goes to school. First
They
off,
have the most wild attic
this
ever.
school, I wrote down, I was like, this school has an attic with literal human skulls and remains in it. Why?
Well, so okay.
It didn't even look like a science skeleton.
Class, let's
though.
go.
Well, so there's the explanation that I kind of thought.
This is your head canon for why there's a skull.
Well, whenever he goes up to the attic, that's not the actual attic. He's basically in a secondary purgatory area where it's not in the real world, not in the fantasy realm.
So it's got some of the
It's
creepy,
the edge.
creepy
It's
elements.
the outskirts of
Which-
Fantasia.
And they kind of play with that with the windows blowing open with the
Yeah.
storm. Like they do play with some of those elements, which is
and that's kind
good.
of where my mind was.
Yeah, because that didn't look like a school attic. There's like a cage in there, like a shark cage. There's like a dead skull. But no, the plot line of so he goes up into this attic, if it was the real world and it was the school, and then his dad just doesn't call the cops. No need to send him looking for the kid. The last place he was seen.
He was sick in the bathroom.
Guess he's just presumed dead. We have 20 witnesses saw some kids toss him in a dumpster. Guess they took him to the landfill. I don't know. And then,
well, also
hopefully he comes back on a luck dragon tomorrow.
I mean, there's no the teachers aren't concerned. Like Bastion hasn't been in any class today.
Yeah.
Maybe we should phone his dad.
Call
Hey,
the
is he
parents.
sick?
And that's kind of
where's
where
the
I'm-
truant officer here?
That's kind of why I'm thinking that it's in its own little
pocket
realm.
dimension.
Yeah, a
Nebulous
little pocket
world,
dimension. Yeah.
Okay.
So my last thing, and this one bothers me because when I was looking, I didn't look maybe as hard as I could have, because I also don't want to. If I want to read the book, I don't want to just spoil it to myself, right?
Sure. Yeah.
But the last bits of scenes in Fantasia, right before the Gmork confrontation, has Atreyu going through these ruins with ancient frescoes painted in of all of the adventures he's had.
Yeah.
And so it's so is this a Wheel of Time thing where this battle has happened over and over again
Right.
for
Yeah.
eons?
Yeah.
Or what's give me
Is the
flesh-
Gmork painting this stuff?
Yeah, he's like
I'm gonna make my last painting look real cool.
yeah, and then I'm gonna put myself in a I can't really draw trees. Hole. I'm gonna put myself in a hole because
Yeah.
I can fit in that. Yeah. He's gonna look at that and be like, "Man, that's weird. That hasn't happened to me yet." And he's gonna turn and be like, "Oh, it's happening to me right now."
And then it would be great if Atreyu beats Gmork and then there's another one where Gmork is winning and he's like, oh, weird. I thought that was gonna happen.
How could I lose?
How
You're
could I
like
lose?
12. I'm a huge wolf.
And the kid's like, you couldn't draw hands really well. Shut up, I'm trying.
I don't even have fingers, kid.
Even magical creatures don't like drawing hands.
No, they don't.
Or feet. You'll know they just cut all the feet off. There's no
Yeah.
feet.
Yeah, no feet.
No feet. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where I feel like if they had just you could probably say 10 lines of dialogue.
And you kind of fix
throughout
in a
the
lot
film,
of,
and it just fills in so much, so
Yeah.
easy. But yeah, I mean, I really would like to read the book now, just
out of curiosity.
I want to know. Well, one, I want to know why people were so mad about it.
Right.
Why was the author ready to just absolutely throw
Steven's
down?
gonna come back in a month and be just on this soapbox of this is the worst movie adaptation ever created.
Yeah. He's going to have that tramp
dare
stamp
they do
tattoo of the
this?
Orin. I read the whole book cover to cover 8 times.
So that's a great.
I stand
great
with
bit
the
there.
author.
So fun fact: Noah Hathaway these days he runs a tattoo parlor with his wife.
I wonder
nice.
how many times that kid has done the Orin tattoo.
One of his most popular tattoos is the Orin sigil because people know who he is.
What if he's
and they
really
seek
bad
him
at
out
drawing
for it.
snakes? I'm just like Gamork with the hands. I can't do these snakes.
It just looks like a noodle.
Yeah. They're like, thanks. He's like, I tried. I don't know.
He didn't wish hard enough.
Yeah.
You gotta believe more, kid.
I lost my dream. Yeah.
All right. Entertainment?
Sure.
Why not?
I want to start with my favorite line in the movie.
Okay.
Go for it.
Winch to the winch.
Yes.
When that guy says that, I laugh every time. Winch to the winch. And then it cuts and she's just like going to town.
Yeah.
Second question. First off, I was entertained. I have a lot of nostalgia for it.
Yeah.
We've been over that.
Yeah.
What kind of conditioner does Trey use?
I mean, it is.
His hair is a
hair.
Pantene Pro V commercial. It is
my
so
gosh.
silky. I'm like, what's this kid putting in his hair?
Yeah.
In the 80s, what'd they even have? They probably just put fish oil. Just
baby
right
oil in there.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah.
It was mildly entertaining for a couple things here and there. It does feel longer than the movie actually is, just because like a lot of the scenes don't really connect.
Yeah.
And if you did add in a couple lines of dialogue and maybe an actual tie-in with his father at the end, it would have been probably a better adaptation or just a better film, just because you get a little bit more emotional resonance out of it.
So from the plot points I read of what the rest of the book contains, I don't think it would make it a better adaptation.
Oh, okay. Well,
I don't even know if there's any actual resolution between him and his dad in the actual book.
Yeah, but for like a story, I think that would put some more meat on the bones of like something to at least grab onto at the end there, because otherwise it's just like Falcor ending done. And you're like, wait, what?
But yeah, I mean, the film's fine.
Yeah,
like going into it without any nostalgia at all, it's very hard to, I think, really grasp onto it. But you know, if you love this film, there's absolutely no problem here for that. Like, I'm glad that you enjoy it.
There are probably worse movies that I absolutely adore.
Oh,
so
there are
like,
some
I'm
very
not,
terrible films that I love.
I'm not trying. Yeah, anybody listening, I'm not judging you if you love this movie.
No,
I
not
just
at all.
definitely feel like it didn't. I remember it being better as a kid.
Yeah.
Well, and I like too, so that the actual ending, right, with Bastion on Falcor, that was not written. That's not in the book. So they had to come up with an ending for this. So that's what they I feel like they hit a point where like the writers were just like, let's give one of these kids a break.
Well,
just
and,
be like,
and then
like, Wolfgang's like, be happy, Bastion, and Bastion's like, I don't know how.
And then they're just like, all right, we're just going to have him go in real world and then chase these bullies around because they were the only like really hard antagonist for Bastion in the film.
What if it had like gotten dark and Falcor catches one and just eats it? Just eats the bully. And the kid's like, no, what is this? You wished it. Your wish is my command. Stop eating everyone. Oh, what have I loosed upon the world?
Like, children in this world taste delicious.
Once I've had a taste for children, I can't go back.
So I think a lot of my entertainment that I'm getting out of this film from watching it is just basically sitting there going like, boy, the 80s were nuts.
Yeah.
Like between the egg and the orange juice in a blender, you know, it's like what? Like big tittied sphinxes with laser eyes. That like if it's not even like the whole
It's
thing.
like the production designer's like, I got an idea how we can make these sphinxes even cooler. And then he did some cocaine and he came back with a thing
like,
scratched out.
They have the whole thing about, you know, like it's self-doubt, right? You can't doubt yourself. But like the real story here is just full speed. It's not a question of doubt. It's just go. If you move fast enough, they just can't hit you.
Yeah.
They don't react quick or something. I don't know how this is actually supposed to work.
I believed that I could go faster, and then therefore I outran the laser eyes.
Than the laser eyes. Man, I remember that bit when like he like walks up to it and the wind blows and the helmet pops back and like, the roasted guys in there. It's just like as a kid again.
Yeah.
Man, it was real.
It's a messed up 80s movie.
You gotta watch out. If you doubt yourself, some sphinx with tits on it will come out with laser eyes and roast you.
Just ruin you. Yeah.
Just destroy your whole world.
There's probably people into that on some section of the internet.
Oh, man.
Don't bring that in here.
I didn't. I'm just saying. I haven't looked it up or anything. Like I'm sure Sphinx.com maybe.
Egypt is going to be mad.
They probably are. How did they get this website before us? We should have got this domain in the 90s.
Oh, man. Is that Egypt's version of whitehouse.com versus .gov?
Probably, yeah. Probably.
Stop. Just stop it now.
Andrew's
like,
waving
please.
us out. Okay.
We're going to get... This episode's gonna be removed. Patreon's gonna demonetize us. But yeah, I mean, like, it's one of those. It's so hard to separate at this point, right, from the nostalgia.
Yeah.
And Andrew's, kind of the good test case here of.
Yeah.
If you watch it as an adult, you're kind of like, what is going on?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's a fine. Again, if you love it, I'm not hating on you for loving it. It's a fine. I think it has some great moments, some really cool stuff in there that has certainly made its way into the rest of
Pop culture,
fantasy, and
yeah.
pop culture. It's huge. I mean, it's a big deal in pop culture.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's
I mean, it's got a very big, like cult following, and
well. I mean, the metal band Atreyu is named after this character.
Yeah.
Like, I mean,
Kid with the great hair in this movie.
there was a guy in my old Lineage 2 guild named Dark Atreyu, and I was like, I wonder where that's from. And he's like, Never Ending Story. There we go.
and like the counselor at the start, right, who brings Atreyu there, like his image, of the big, like the old, like wizardly looking kind of
Yeah.
thing. Man, I swear, that dude was probably on the front of Trapper Keepers and folders everywhere in my childhood. I'm positive, like I've seen that face.
Yeah.
So yeah, it had huge impact, and
I think it's one of those situations where like the cultural impact is more important than the movie.
Than the movie
at
itself.
this point,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
Like, and there's some cool scenes in this movie. There's definitely some iconic moments
Yeah.
and stuff. But yeah, as a cohesive movie that's enjoyable to watch as an adult without nostalgia, it's going to struggle. But yeah, its cultural impact can't be understated.
No, of course not.
Yeah, absolutely not. So I do believe, on that note, we're running out of time here. We're
are.
winding down, but we got to shill. Even on the Patreon early access here, we got to shill.
Yeah. So speaking of, if you want to support us, the most direct way to do that is to become a patron.
Yep.
At the $1 tier, you get access to an insane amount of bonus content. All the stuff we've done before, plus,
New stuff that's going to come out soon.
Yeah, we upload once a month. We had a really
Guaranteed once a month.
yeah, guaranteed once a month, maybe more.
Maybe more.
One of my favorites that we've done is we basically did a love it, tolerate it, or hate it about pizza toppings.
Yep.
That was fun.
And there's a lot of discussion about pizza toppings in that one.
Yeah,
we
and mushrooms,
we
contentious.
found out that Ryan likes mushrooms for some reason.
God, they're just so good.
Oh.
Sorry that you guys are
But
not team mushroom.
But if $1 is not in the cards, that is totally okay.
Mm-hmm.
We'd love for you to obviously follow us on social media like Instagram and Facebook.
Yep.
We don't have Twitter, sorry, but we'd
one
love
else
for you
does
to
either,
for you to share our posts, give us a like,
Leave
that
us a
kind of stuff.
review.
Leave us a
Wherever you
review.
listen to podcasts.
Follow us on Spotify because you can't rate the shows.
You
that
can
kind of
rate
thing.
the show.
Oh, well,
You
fine.
can't leave a review, but you can pick a star rating.
Yeah.
Yeah, follow us, review us wherever you listen. Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts,
Yep.
your mom's podcast, whatever you're doing. Just rate us and share it with a friend.
Yeah, but on that note, I do believe that is all the time we have. So until next time, I'm Steven,
I'm Andrew.
And I'm Ryan.
and every spoiler was intended.